Well, hello, people who will be working on the Hunter Safety Project. We've got to get this script ready for filming by Friday, so we definitely have our work cut out for us. Waylon, my name's Anthony. It's a pleasure to virtually meet you. I've obviously met Carlos. So I'm going to be helping Carlos, making sure that we get all compliance requirements. The system that has been set up is probably self-evident, but just in case anyone else might come on in the next few days to help us, I'll just briefly go over the logic of how this works here. So this sheet here represents the sheet that was sent to us that details everything that needs to be covered in the script, ultimately in the learning modules. And so obviously that needs to be represented in the script. And so what I've done here is kind of group these together by the things that they cover. And each one of these lines obviously represents a specific thing that has to happen, has to occur. And so right in here, we have what's listed as an asset tracking code. And that's a unique identifier for each individual item that needs to appear in the script. And the logic of that code just basically follows this unit 1, U1, and then which item, and then sub-item, right? So that takes us through our 5 basic units. And this, from what I can gather here, represents the same rubric in which the ultimate final test questions will be pulled from. So in essence, every single item that needs to exist, or every idea, concept that has to be represented in the script, has its own unique identifier code. In practice, if I go to a particular area of the script, let's say right here, we see a tag marker here of U22, so we know that is covering something from Unit 2, Section 2, right? And then the subsection, in this case, there isn't a subsection, but that's how you would identify it. All that data is there. And this kind of allows us to do a bit of meta tracking. So if we wanted to find within the script a particular item that we need to make sure is accounted for, I can put in U3 and it shows me where those entries are going to be on the script. So one of the things that I might actually recommend doing, and Carlos, if you want to do this, go for it, or maybe I'll do it, but it would actually be nice to have this so there are individual, you can click anywhere on the page and make an entry. And the way we basically would do that is pre-fill these margins. Just do a bunch of those, highlight it, command copy, and just fill out the whole document that way. So you can go in and put and click anywhere in the margin and add a new entry. And if we needed to do additional like copies of the scripts once this is finalized and annotate them, we could do that. We don't necessarily know what the state process is in approving the materials, but we don't want to slow it down in any way. So whatever we can do to make that easiest for them to analyze the script, the better. Here's precisely where this element is in the script. But obviously the idea here is that we need to get every single one of these ideas represented in our script. Once we have that, then we can worry about filling out the length. I think as long as we can make sure that everything that needs to be represented as far as the state is concerned is in the script, then the rest will be easier. So priority number 1 is just making sure that we've got everything that needs to be represented. And then from that, we can also derive our tests. Okay, so this appears to be our overview of how this thing is ultimately going to look once it's on the website. Now, one thing that I have noticed about this, and maybe Waylon, you can offer a bit more clarification on exactly what you want to see here, is does this breakdown of units represent how you would prefer the script to go? If this represents the overall framework that you would prefer or need the course to flow in, so technically might require a little bit of retooling of the script if we're going to film it all in order. So maybe you could give us a little bit more clarity on that. If this here represents exactly how you would prefer the assets to be divided up. So no matter what we film on Friday, ultimately we're going to be chopping it up into individual clips. So while it is great to have the script, I think number one priority is making sure that the script represents everything that needs to be in there. If there are, subtle rearrangements or things that need to be done to break them into logical chunks that follow this format, we can definitely do that. Okay, so just making sure we address everything that Waylon here has raised as concerns. Missing sections, I think Carlos is on that. Concerns over not meeting the 3-hour time span. I think our strategy there is make sure we've got all of those itemized elements in the script, and then we can figure out ways to fill it out. I think Carlos has mentioned that it is a pretty dense script. The 10-question quiz that needs to be at each unit. And we need to do a 200 minimum total questions. So I'm kind of assuming that the questions that appear in the quizzes don't double appear in the final quiz. So I think our strategy, and if that's different, you can correct us, but 50 questions that will represent quiz questions, 200 that will represent the final, but the 200 from the final are different than the quiz questions. If that's not correct, let me know. The final exam must consist of at least 50 questions based on the table, and this rubric here has where we have to pull our questions from. I think, Carlos, you probably have a copy of this. And so as Carlos gets these tests together, I will kind of go through them with these rubrics in mind, with these guidelines here, and just have a second pair of eyes, make sure that we're staying in compliance, and look forward to getting this project done. It is a pretty complex project. There's a lot of assets that are going to have to go into this, and that's, I think, maybe one last thing that I'll mention as far as using these codes is they can also be used as we are gathering assets. Any assets that apply to those concepts can also be given those same tags. So basically, this is just a quality assurance process and protocol, making sure that we're being thorough and getting everything in there that we need to, so we can be ready to shoot by Friday. So for any questions, you can email Carlos or myself, and we are here to help. So like I say, it's a pleasure to meet you virtually, Waylon, and look forward to working with you and getting this where it needs to be.